Are you seeing any specific shifts in housing type? As in, like, should we be, as a developer, putting that hat on for a second, should we be building more one-bedroom units? Is that growing? Is there any, or should we still be building four-bedroom houses? Like, what? Obviously, probably four-bedroom houses is always going to be high demand, but you're seeing like one-bedroom units, the demand for that growing, or what are you seeing?
Well, so this is a question of where am I looking?
Yeah.
Is the answer. So the migrants that come to Australia initially are overwhelmingly single or at best coupled. So it's one or two people, so they need relatively small dwellings. Yeah, they will live in the city center. So that means as migration continues to flow in, but so for 250,000 net new migrants, you don't need to have the equivalent amount of apartments because each year some of those migrants bugger off of their apartments and they move into the family formation stage to the outer suburbs. And so that leads us to the demographic element of what is the most attractive property type in the next decade. What we are doing for the next 12 years is we continue to push the biggest generation of them all, millennials, from the inner city hipster areas onto the urban fringe. What do I mean by this? Well, at the moment, still most millennials are only coupled up. So they live in Surrey Hills, in Brunswick, in Fortitude Valley in a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment. They now add 1.5 kids bit by bit to their hipster dwellings. These become like cramped with prams and cots and whatever. And so they need to find a large enough, a family-sized 3-4 bedroom dwelling. Where are those dwellings? Well, they're not in the inner city suburbs because they don't even exist there. Millennials can't do what their boomer parents have done in the past and move to the middle suburbs because their beloved boomer parents are still hogging the 3 and 4 bedroom stock as empty nesters. They were fantastic NIMBYs over the last decade, so they block development. So millennials need to jump to the urban fringe. It is guaranteed for the next 12 years that 3 to 4 bedroom dwellings on the urban fringe will see gigantic demand growth. Guaranteed.
Where's the urban fringe in your opinion? So if we talk Brisbane as an example, where's the urban fringe in your? I mean, from a suburb. Let's go Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney, because we'll talk about Gold Coast off camera because I don't want to give away our secrets. But what's the outer fringe?
The urban
fringe. Sorry.
The urban fringe is wherever you look at and you find enough land to bulldoze and build housing quickly. So this is why we sprawl out. If you look at something like Melton or Wyndham in Melbourne, this is just gigantically far away from the CBD, but you have plenty of land to bulldoze.
Yeah.
Bit of a broader strategic problem there is that we now bulldoze valuable farmland on the urban fringe. Mm-hmm. We are still a farming superpower, agriculture superpower. We are one of the 4 largest exporters of food in the world. We should remain to be this, so we shouldn't sacrifice land, to be honest, at the rate that we do, because it will continue to make us money, because global food prices will escalate. Terrible news for the bottom 2 billion people of this planet, but great news for a food exporter like Australia. So that's a strategic mismatch. We bulldoze valuable farmland, we're not creating more farmland. So that's a problem. But that's how our cities grow, because we're not adding more Gold Coasts.
Yeah.
We continue to add our population into just the same few cities.
And in Brisbane, would you say the likes of, say, like Logan, North Lakes, Burpengary, North as an example, Logan, Yarrabilba, Ripley, all these super...
Just look at a map and you see that there is land to bulldoze. And then you, in a sense, what the problem here is that we build property first and then worry about infrastructure, because the private sector develops faster than the public sector. So we then have this kind of gigantic problem in Australia where we play infrastructure catch up. Yep. Wherever you look at it varies a bit, but I think it's fair to roughly estimate that we have an infrastructure backlog of about 20 years in this country. And you then go, well, no problem, let's just play catch up. Let's just build more infrastructure. We could theoretically build infrastructure faster than we add population, and so sooner or later we catch up. But it's such an inefficient and expensive way of building infrastructure. It is much cheaper to build infrastructure in the build it and they will come type way, where you start with infrastructure and then you add housing. If you ever played SimCity on a computer, so you would do it, by the way. But we don't do this because, politically speaking, you can't pull it off. Infrastructure in this country is a political game, where a political party decides what stuff gets built and they then are being judged by the public on the success of this thing and by the existence of this thing in the first place. So if you ever were to build infrastructure to this future development site where you'll put tens of thousands of people there, it is the most efficient, cheapest, most effective way of adding infrastructure to this country. It serves the good of the most number of people. You can't do it. Because if you were to do this, the existing voters with an infrastructure backlog, they would hate you and they would not vote for you. So this system dictates inefficient use of infrastructure. Also, it allows infrastructure costs to escalate. Because if I am assigning my name, my political fortunes to ensure that, let's say, the Melbourne suburban rail loop gets built, which needs to be built, absolutely a must that this thing gets built, but it turns out to be stupendously expensive. And so I'd say, well, I'd rather build this at whatever cost so that I have something to open, to cut a ribbon. That is important. And so therefore, the political class becomes compliant in inefficient infrastructure. Because if the infrastructure was built by, let's say, Infrastructure Australia, and the political system only dictates the amount of amount of money that gets spent on infrastructure, then Infrastructure Australia gets to decide this is the first priority, second priority, and the political leaders would actually be there to critically watch over the infrastructure rather than to push it through at all costs and therefore allow inefficiencies in the system. It is a terrible systemic problem that we have. And it's not as easy as saying this or that political leader is a moron. Let's get rid of this moron and then everything is solved. It's not that. We would need systemic change to provide more efficient infrastructure. I think it is high time to do so because we just keep running behind the times, and it is quite frustrating to look at.
Well, I mean, I've been here 18 years now. It's been the same thing in 18 years with no changes, and I'm not sure what it was like, 30, 40, 50 years ago, but I'm sure there wasn't much change. Like we're building highways, 25 years after we need them.
We have wonderful stories and examples of short-sighted infrastructure decisions in the past. So I remember my first day in Australia, 1st of February 2008. Went to Melbourne Uni. This is where I studied first when I came here. And so Melbourne Uni is, of course, smack bang in the center of town. And so uni hadn't started yet, so I just went for a walk. And I walked around, there's Princess Park, and then I came across a level crossing. It blew my little mind that in the middle of a big fat city, there's a level crossing. I actually couldn't believe it. It's there. And now, decades after we built this level crossings, this thing would have been 50, 60 years old. We are now replacing them at the cost of billions. Because some lazy bastard decades ago was too cheap to build a bit of a tunnel, a bit of an overpass. These short-sighted decisions in the past cost you dearly in the future. And at some point, we must decide what we want the future of this country to look like. And you can play this game right now, because it is an utterly plausible scenario that we double the Australian population by the turn of the century. So 2100, 2104 or 5 or something like this, next 70 to 80 years, we will probably double the country from 27.5 to 55 million people. And this is the, play along at home game here. Where do you want to put those 27.5 million new Australians? You decide. If we were to take this growth potential, this growth story seriously, we would think about this and we would put infrastructure in place, or at least earmark land corridors for this infrastructure right now, so that we do not end up doing just the same mistakes that we've done over the last century in the next century.